Didn't matter if it was arrows, stabilizers, arms on machines, robots, things like that. It always came back to a very consistent carbon tube. Carbon itself, if you look at it outside the carbon tube market or a bar, tends to be more stylized. Hoods for cars, fairings for race cars, things like that. They do lighten it up and they do have strength, but they don't tend to have that overwhelming strength. So basically what we did is we looked at the areas on a riser and figured out, okay, this area needs to be aluminum still. We need to have its strength, but still have flexibility. And then you're also going to mount something to it. Like you said, the limb pocket, the sight, the rest. Then we looked at the areas that could give us the possibility of long stretches that didn't necessarily need those flat surfaces that we could make stiffer. And that's basically kind of how we became, took the carbon and the aluminum approach together, is basically being able to put, we say it internally, carbon in the right places, aluminum in the right places. So basically the best materials where they need to be.
What's going on? Welcome back to the RedBeard Outdoors podcast. I'm Jonathan, your host. And guys, we are all about faith, family, fitness, and the outdoors. And with that being said, I want to bring you along on my journey as I go through 2025 and continued. Those of you that have been here since the beginning, thank you so much. If you are new, I would really appreciate you hopping over. If you're on YouTube, subscribe. If you are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, follow along and leave a review. It helps way more than you know. And I'm also doing some giveaways throughout this year, so you want to stay tuned for those. Before we get into that, though, today we have an amazing guest. Before we get into the full conversation, I do want to remind you we are giving away a 65 millimeter spotting scope from Leupold. No purchase necessary to get entered, none whatsoever. Simply subscribe, drop a comment down below on this conversation, any questions you may have throughout the conversation, and use the link, get entered so that I can know how to contact you. We will be doing a live giveaway on that when we hit 6,000 subscribers. So no purchase necessary. Win an amazing spotting scope worth about $1,000. You are going to love it. It's amazingly clear glass, their new Gen 2 model. Really excited about that and grateful to Leupold for giving that. With that being said, guys, let's get into the podcast here. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the RedBeard Outdoors podcast. I'm Jonathan, your host, and today we have a fantastic guest for you guys. We've got Brian Anderson from G5. G5's connected with multiple companies that we'll get into as far as Prime and also Montana Rifle Company. But Brian here, he kind of manages essentially getting product out to the right people, but also he absolutely loves these brands. The brands that he works with, he's tied in with them and uses them and absolutely just loves them. So we're going to get into all of that, why Brian has chosen to work with this company over others and more. So also my experience with the broadheads this last year, the Mega Meat and the T2 absolutely are in my top 3 broadheads for deer this last year. So we'll get into all of that. But for people that don't know who you are, Brian, who are you, man? Other than a guy with an awesome beard.
Thanks. It was a little bit more red like yours a couple years back.
And you started working for G5, right? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That and kids, it turned white real quick. I'm kind of the outlier in the industry. A lot of guys jump around the industry. I've actually been with G5. This is going on my 18th year. Basically worked at a shop growing up. My dad was a professional archer, so I've kind of always been in the lifestyle. Got with the family. I started basically here, like I said, almost 20 years ago, just doing customer service, tech calls, things like that. Quickly moved into sales. I was in sales for almost 12 years with the company. And basically over the last 2 years transitioned into the community manager, working, like you said, working with getting products to the right people, working with all of our celebrities, all of our influencers, working brand to brand relationships. So just kind of anything that has the look, feel of, or touch of Prime, G5 or Montana Rifles is me. So.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So I guess essentially 18 years, you're right, is a very long time to be with any company, whether you're in the outdoors industry or not. A lot of people bounce around and can't keep a job, or it's not that they can't keep one. It's more you get bored, you get fidgety, whatever happens, you move on. Sometimes it's good, it's for career progression. Other times it's just you're bored and you want to, do something else due to ADHD or whatever. And so 18 years that's literally an adult, going from 0 to an adult. That's a long time to be with a company. So why have you chosen to stick with Prime and G5 all these years?
There's a couple reasons. One major is we're a family-based company. That's been a big importance for me. I'm a family guy. Grew up in a small town, and I see that look, feel, and everything here in the family. The Graces. It started with Lou and then his two sons. That's how G5. I mean, basically, it even started with Lou's dad. I mean, the company's been around for over 50 years. We specialize in precision machining. So if it's grinding to you name it, we do it. But yeah, no, worked hand in hand with the owners, Matt and Nate, for last 20 years, family based. Get to do different projects on a daily basis. It's not very boring when we have that many brands under one umbrella. And it's I'll be honest, it's a little security. There's a lot of industries or a lot of companies in the industry that have been bought up by conglomerates. They're going strong. I mean, they tell us every single day, this is our company. They're going to run it. We're not selling out. So it's got a little security, but it's also, like you said, being able to have, spread the knowledge in multiple aspects, but also work with a close family company has been my go-to.
Yeah, and I would agree. I would agree with that. The fact that there's always a lot of movement. Even we were talking about keeping a job
Yeah.
for an extended period of time, but ownership changes. I mean, I'm going through that in my 9 to 5. We had a company come in and buy out the company, which has been some amazing changes. But also, there's some things that I'm like, it doesn't really jive with me personally. And again, nothing against that. There's not, for the most part, I want to say people come in and buy companies they want to grow the company, right?
Yes.
They're not doing any changes intentionally to ruin people's experiences at the company. But also the family vibe of, G5, and I haven't gotten to meet any of the Grace family, but I've just heard really good things. And from what I understand about companies that are family oriented, tight knit group of individuals, it's definitely something that will keep someone like yourself around for 18 years. And it's a good environment for sure.
Yeah. Really, it really has been. Like I said, I mean, we have some people on the shop floor that worked for Lou and worked for Lou's dad. I mean, they've been around for 40 plus years. We're a small town. That was one thing, is I've had opportunities with other brands that just didn't feel comfortable. Probably a bigger paycheck at the end of the day, but sometimes it's not about the money. It's kind of being able to go home at the end of the day and really enjoy what you do, and be able to feel like you've made a difference. So
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I would agree with that. And, you definitely, and my interactions with you as well have been great. Nothing but good, as far as that's concerned. And so, with all the change, I mean, you've seen a lot in 18 years. You've seen, you mentioned celebrities, influencers. You probably, I mean, 18 years ago, definitely there wasn't influencers to even deal
yeah,
with. So that's evolved. That's created a whole new job opportunity for yourself in that company. What, I guess, let's kind of hit on some of the things that people definitely want to hear about. Of course, the Phorm by
yeah,
Prime would be number one. I think, and from my experience being up at Wild Arrow, hearing people, their first reactions to seeing this bow, then shooting the bow, if they are in the market, if they're not hardcore one brand or another, and they're looking around at what's new, uh, there's definitely a mixed bag. And usually how it goes is they see it and they're like, man, that thing's ugly. Or that thing is interesting. That's another
yep,
term. They're trying not to be mean, right? For the most part. And I always tell people, I'm like, maybe some of these guys are older than me. They don't remember Teen Titans off of Cartoon Network. But Teen Titans, they had Cyborg was one of
oh
them.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it reminds me of a cyborg in a way, just how you've pieced together things that work really well together. So that goes from that reaction to they shoot the bow and they're like, huh. And they kind of have this thought of like, this could grow on me,
for
possibly,
sure,
you
for
know?
sure.
And so let's kind of dive into that a little bit. The Phorm, it's been in the making for how long?
Give or take about 10 years of looking into it. I mean, really, the development time has been over the last 3 years. But we've looked into carbon and, other materials besides aluminum for basically like the last 10 years. So anybody that knows G5 or knows Prime knows the Grace family. Nate is an out of the box thinker. He's our head engineer. He's one of the brothers. So he went global, looking for the next best thing when it came to carbon. I mean, he went to, the smallest seminars to the biggest seminars, and nothing seemed very, very consistent. That's where we specialize. That's how we got started. It was precision grind, precision machining. Carbon is great. It's a great substrate. It's very light. It's very strong. But it can be pretty inconsistent. I'm not knocking the other brands that are doing carbon. They're doing a great job. I mean, there's definitely the kings in carbon. I see one in the background right now, and they've done a great job with it. But we, on the other hand, wanted to look at it from a different angle. We looked at all the components on a bow, from where the limbs or the pocket meets the riser, where your arrow rests meet the riser, things like that. We were finding inconsistencies from bow to bow to bow. So what we want to do is find out what was going to make those consistent, and then also look at the components of the bow. What is the strongest points? What points can you have flex? What points do you need stiffer? Because there's strength and stiffness, and those are two different things. But then we started looking into carbon more and more and more. And the one thing that kept popping out, no matter which industry it was in, was carbon tubes. Didn't matter if it was arrows, stabilizers, arms on machines, robots, things like that. It always came back to a very consistent carbon tube. Carbon itself, if you look at it outside the carbon tube market or a bar, tends to be more stylized. Hoods for cars, fairings for race cars, things like that. They do lighten it up and they do have strength, but they don't tend to have that overwhelming strength. So basically what we did is we looked at the areas on a riser and figured out, okay, this area needs to be aluminum still. We need to have its strength, but still have flexibility. And then you're also going to mount something to it. Like you said, the limb pocket, the sight, the rest. Then we looked at the areas that could give us the possibility of long stretches that didn't necessarily need those flat surfaces that we could make stiffer. And that's basically kind of how we became, took the carbon and the aluminum approach together, is basically being able to put, we say it internally, carbon in the right places, aluminum in the right places. So basically the best materials where they need to be.
Well, I can just, from my experience, again, it's funny because I actually don't work specifically with any bow company at this point. I ran a PSE for a year, and they do their carbon differently, and it's funny seeing they're brought in the Mach 34 for the first time to get it set up at Wild Arrow, and they're like, man, it looks like a it looks like a skinny girl with no curves. They were like, or a boat oar was the other one, but it was the lightest thing out there. They actually took carbon, and their approaches make it super light, but they didn't have a lot of aluminum mounting points, so you couldn't have any of these new age features with the lower, exactly. And so then they transitioned, and their carbons got heavier because they had to put aluminum where they needed to mount things. Hoyt does the same thing. They've got aluminum where where things need to be mounted to. You've got the lower position of the stabilizers. You've got the regular position. You've got the Picatinny mount, and obviously limb pockets and stuff as well. But there's a lot of aluminum that's still in a carbon bow. And so it was interesting seeing that, and then also hearing, we put aluminum where aluminum needs to be and carbon where carbon needs to be. And made a super stiff riser. And then what a lot of people also don't know is that most carbon, so I work with Quattro on their stabilizers.
Great.
And their stabilizer tubes look exactly like, it's the same carbon weave and pattern. And they actually order their carbon from the US to ship it out overseas because we make the best carbon tubes here in the US. So anyway, it's cool to see that you guys thought outside the box, did it your own way. And then the other talking point of carbon, which, you can, I don't know, I've got my own opinions on that, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole we could go down. But the warm to the touch, it's not, to me, warm to the touch is not a $700 difference.
No, and there's some truth to that. I mean, there's no doubt, especially like you said, PSE has very little aluminum in their bow. They're probably the kings when it comes to warm to the touch. Some of the other brands, I mean, we've taken them all and we've cut them into pieces. So we know a lot of the other brands, there is still aluminum underneath that grip in the carbon. It's the stiffest area. It needs stiffness. So there's some kind of aluminum. So yes, it will be warmer, but there is still aluminum that's cold in there. And we had already kind of figured that out a couple of years ago. I mean, a lot of guys know it, but some guys don't. So the number one insulator in the world is air. Anything where you have puffy jackets, things like that, you're producing air between your body and the surface. So we actually worked with a company that basically is the same material NASA uses in spacesuits, satellites, and it's called aerogel. It's 99% air. It's the best insulator in the world, and we had already integrated that underneath our grip. So yes, you have a $700 option to get carbon, to have your hand warm, or we've actually found a material that's even more insulating, and we've integrated in the grip. So we've kind of figured that
Right.
out for it. So it wasn't an idea like, oh, we need this warm to the touch, because we're from Michigan. It gets cold up here. It's snowing today, So
Mhm.
I mean, it's turkey season almost, and we're still getting snow. So we've realized when it's cold, you need something. So
Right. Yeah. No, and I agree. And that's where I was kind of headed was I personally am like, look, I wear gloves anyway in the cold. And carbon, it's not like it's a heat warmer, a hand warmer built into your bow. It just doesn't pull heat from your hand like aluminum does.
exactly.
That's essentially what, and so for me, when people say that, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I've carried carbon bows and aluminum bows in the cold. My hand still gets cold. Like it is what it is.
Yeah.
Until they build hand warmers in, which maybe that's something you guys could do with that aerogel is have like a plug-in, Matthews has their shot since you guys could have the hand warmer built
Actually, I
into
think Matthews, I don't know if it ever really took off, but I think Matthews actually had one a couple years ago. I don't know if it ever not
really.
made it to market, but I do remember a little buzz going on for a bit, but I didn't really seem to take off. So,
I think that was just the lithium battery in the shot sense warming
yeah,
up.
could
I
have been
think
it,
that's
right?
you feel it expanding a little bit.
Yeah,
You should probably
exactly.
let your
No,
bow
but the
go.
grip's warm, So that's fun.
Oh man, but no, that's awesome, and I again, kudos to you guys for thinking outside the box because it really has been a long time, and I've only been in archery for 6 years or so.
Okay.
And there's some changes. I'd tell people it's like the
Oh, for
iPhone. If you
sure.
get one every year, there's some minor changes, but if you don't dive into an iPhone, you're not going to notice them if you don't utilize the different cameras and all this stuff features. But
Exactly.
every 2 to 3 years, you'll notice a difference. Same with bows. I feel like there's a lot of, Hoyt has their look, PSE has their look, Prime has their look. But then you guys came out with this. I'm like, okay, that's new, that's different. And then of course it's in the 34-inch axle to axle, which I feel like is it's kind of on the high end for me personally with a 28 and a half inch draw, but it does build that stability in with, the forgiveness. And that's really a lot of what you guys are going for. While everyone else seems to be chasing speed, you guys have one of the smoothest draw cycles, and it's a very stable and stiff, stable bow, stiff riser is kind of
Yeah,
what it
no,
seems like you guys are going after.
yeah, we went with the long, stable riser. One of the big things, and some people get it, some people don't, is the center grip. So almost every hunting bow on the market, the arrow is the center of the bow. Hoyt actually chased this kind of same concept years ago, and they actually did really, really well with it on the target side of the world. It just never took off on the hunting side. You're basically having to design two cams to kind of be able to work with this system. So that was something we tackled 4 or 5 years ago with the Centroid or Synergy series, and been able to progress it, make it better through the years. But it does two things. One, it puts the center of gravity below your hand, so you have the stable long platform, but it also feels lighter for the sure reason that the grip has the weight below it without adding weight below the grip. The other side of it is it actually makes the bow truly kind of shorter axle to axle. From our grip to the top of the bow, truly a 34 is actually a 32-inch axle to axle bow. So in a tree stand, in a blind, it's actually shorter, above, so you don't have to worry about what's above your head. So it gives you the longer platform, the longer stability without really feeling like a bow that's 34 inches. Another thing is we like to work our limbs a little more, maybe than some others. So we're getting bows like if you go actually, and we talked about a little bit, but not a ton, but cam to cam. If you take our bow at 34 inches and put it up to another bow that's say 32 or 31, it's probably more than likely the same exact length. So it's getting people to think a little bit different, but axle to axle is still that industry standard. So it's hard to kind of change the industry just because we're changing what we do. So
Yeah, and I agree. There's some people out there talking about it, and again, just kind of changing. Do we really need to be looking at IBO anymore? Kind of deal. Are people really shooting a 350 arrow? No, no one's shooting a 350 grain arrow unless you're going to tack and you're trying to push speed and whatever.
yeah,
Outside of that, most people are within that 420 to 470 range for the most part, unless
Exactly.
you have a monster draw length and you're 500 plus, but still that's kind of the industry standard with hunting anyway. And so that plus the cams, like what you were saying, having I'm trying to remember, Josh Jones brings it up. I'm trying to remember what he called it, but essentially when you're at full draw, the length from where the string comes off the top cam and the bottom cam, that should be,
Yeah,
instead of
there's like
ATA.
static and dynamic brace heights and static and
Yes.
dynamic axle to axle. So basically, as you're moving, the more parallel you have, the closer to that doesn't change. So if you have the old school bows, they kind of bent more, so you actually gained more. Nowadays bows, they actually, some can shrink and actually then some grow just slightly, but not like they used to. So the concept of numbers of when these were all developed by the ATA and IBO standards were 20, 30 years ago. It kind of a little bit outdated. I mean, it still gives a standard for a guy to walk into a shop that can tell what a speed of a bow is, can kind of tell what an axle to axle is. But I mean, you got to look up and beyond those numbers to kind of truly see what some of the brands are doing. It's not just us. I mean, PSE talked about it years ago with basically the same system when they kind of had that fish hook limb, and they still do a little bit. They're
Mm-hmm.
not as parallel as most, where you're actually gaining brace height, you're growing that brace height, so you're getting more stability. So you don't have to have the super long riser. You can shorten the riser up and have a little more flex in the limbs. It's to each their own in their design. I think everybody makes a good bow. It's just kind of what personally feels best to you. So yeah, it's just kind of not necessarily reading a book going, oh, that's a 350 bow with a 6-inch brace height, and that's what I
Right.
have to have. Like, it's a little more dynamic than what it used to be.
Yeah, I agree. And that's definitely, for people out there that aren't, as nerdy about it as maybe me and Brian, that's okay. ATA
Yeah,
is okay, but it really is like you can take a 30-inch bow and a 32-inch bow, or even a 32-inch bow and a 34-inch bow, and sometimes they'll have the same string angle because they can't, like, there's a bunch that goes into it. So just, again, go in, test all these bows out, and don't shy away from, and if they do sell forms at your local bow shop, I
they do.
recommend going and trying it out
Yeah.
because it's definitely something that, one, it catches the eye. Two, I'm going to tell you, those white limbs or even the white tiger stripe limbs,
Yeah. The
those
Summit,
things pop. Like
they do.
they're pretty awesome. And then again, just I recommend people go out and try it. You're going to find it's a smooth draw cycle. It truly is, and it's a very stable riser without even any stabilizers on it. And then on top of that, I do want to ask you though, there's always give and take based on bow designs and what you're looking for. I have noticed, again, for me, 28 to 28 and a half inch draw, I lose some distance because of the center grip, is what it seems like to me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not the center grip technology. Is that something that you guys talk about? Do you consider that? Has it been brought to your attention, or is it something else that I'm not, thinking about?
No, I mean, so I've had a couple dealers bring it up. I don't know if it's a dealer to dealer situation or what. I mean, really, it's still the same peep height. It's still set up that way. I mean, personally, my bows, I can shoot an older bow or a current bow and still get 120, 130 yards plus. So I think it's just kind of how those dealers are setting them up. I
Hmm.
mean, a guy doesn't really want to change his anchor point. So maybe just having, basically being a little bit shorter of a brace height, it's just kind of a little bit different. And there is, sorry, not even brace height, but axle to axle, so you're getting that string angle slightly different. Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not sure because I've had dealers that say they've never had an issue, and then like Jeremiah, we can talk about him. He's seeing it at his shop where some of the guys are losing a little bit of distance. I mean, hunting situations, 80, 90, 100 don't seem to be
Yeah.
a situation. Some of that 110 to 120, 130 where guys want attack setup. I am seeing a couple guys, but not with every setup. So I don't know if it's just peep height and how your anchor on your hand is, or your level of your face, just kind of because of the string angle. Yeah, it's been brought up. I mean, we've looked into it. We've done a lot of numbers. We're not seeing it in the numbers. So I think it's more of the setup and kind of how the shops really kind of go to their key numbers. But maybe they're starting like that 5.5 to 6 inch distance from the peep to the loop. They're starting with those and going with that when it does tend to extend a little bit because of the string angle. Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not. I'm not going to say somebody's right or wrong on how they're setting them up. If it's shooting an arrow straight and they're doing what they need to do, there has been that conversation. But like I said, I mean, I've have a 34 Phorm and then a 32 RVX plus, and I can get them both. I mean, sighted into 120, 130 without a problem.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay, cool.
could just
I
be.
just
Could be
I know that, yeah, that's something that I personally, um I mean, I just kind of did a redneck test, right? Where
yeah,
you
yeah,
just, you scroll down the site, you have your arrow there, checking clearance, etc. But I would agree it is more for those extreme tack distances. It's not less than 100. It was
yeah,
more
yeah.
of,
That's where
I
we've
might,
seen it. We haven't seen anybody that like
yeah,
I can only get 60 yards out of it. That's
yeah,
definitely
no,
something going
no,
on. But yeah, no,
yeah.
100, minimally 100. I think most guys can get a setup.
Sweet. And then there's another guy too. He's been popping up a lot lately, and I don't know why, but the algorithm's been pushing him to me. Bow Boy.
Oh boy,
He
Scotty.
Yeah, yes, Scotty. So he's funny, and we're gonna get him on the podcast too. But
Awesome.
he actually stretched his out to, I don't even know, I think it was like 150, 160 with a dialed proof, and he's got a 29-inch straw, I believe, so not much longer than mine. And he was fine. He was hitting the target, as well as he could shoot. And
Yeah,
so
I seen he
again,
posted. I haven't watched the video yet, so
yeah,
yeah, it's doable for sure. Like I said, so I think it's just a little bit of how the bows are set up. I mean, we're 90 degrees on angle from the string to the arrow, so there shouldn't be any levelness issues there. Like I said, I think it's just each shop has their own secret sauce when setting up a bow, and sometimes that sauce just doesn't line up with everything. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, I've just heard it around, so I just wanted to bring that up
yeah,
and,
no, I
and
appreciate it.
clarify
So
that. So that makes sense. And then yeah, so the center grip technology, and then again, those carbon tubes make the riser stiffer where it needs to be stiff, but the aluminum allows it to flex where it needs to flex. Again, creating a mix of both worlds rather than just being one or the other.
exactly,
That it's awesome. It really is. You guys did a good job with that bow.
appreciate it.
And I always tell people, I'm like, look, it's like what I tell my kids, I'm like, you can't say you don't like something until you've tried it, right? With food,
Nothing
I'm
but
like,
the
you
kids,
may
right?
not like the way it looks, but if you take a bite and then you can honestly say you don't like it, cool. But you take a bite, most of the time my kids are, they're all about it. So
There's
if you see it in the shop, don't shy away from it.
Yeah, there's no doubt we were a disruptor in the industry this year. I mean, if you see it across the room, it's our bow. Not everybody, it's not everybody's taste, and we knew that, but we definitely knew in what we were doing for the future and what we were looking at. This is the direction we want to go. So
Exactly. Cool. So we hit on the Prime. You guys do have, I mean, it kind of got shadowed by the Prime, but you have the RVX Plus models in a 32, 34, and 36.
Yeah, yep. So all three of those we basically took a lot of the stuff that we did in the Phorm and changed it over to the RVX series. So last year was the RVX, this year's the RVX Plus. We thinned down the riser, so we lost about 20. I would say about a quarter of a pound, but also stiffened up the areas. Some certain things we added some small features. Was able to add with the new mounts for the new quivers. Yeah, so it definitely got a little shadowed. I mean, aluminum's been our baby for a long time. We're metallurgists at heart, so we still put a lot of effort and a lot of love into that series, but definitely didn't get as much love as the Phorm. And actually, it was the bow. Everybody in the office, everybody wanted to shoot the Phorm. I was like, I'll shoot the RVX Plus. I loved it. I had a hell of a run with it. Like that bow is still going to be set up for all season, just in case I don't have a day I don't want to use the Phorm. So, for a guy that doesn't want to spend 15 to 1,600 bucks for 12 to 1,300, it's definitely one to check out. I mean, it feels good. It's lightweight. It's stiff. I mean, it's everything Prime's put into our aluminum series through the years. With a plus, being able to be even lighter. So
Yep. I love that. And also, the Ronin is something that I would say, and Wild Arrow, we did a video on that about kind of the more economical bows. I hate to say budget because it's not really, it's still $1,000 bow ish, or just
yeah,
under 1,000. No, it's like 800,
800.
800,
Yeah, it was actually
$800 for
850.
Ronin.
Yeah, it was 850 the year before. We dropped it down to 800 this year. We found some savings in it. Yeah, so I'd love to talk in that category. So the biggest thing that we've seen in budget bows or not flagship bows is you get usually the technology in the riser, but they tend to cheapen up pockets, cams. You're not getting the best performance. What we thought is like, we feel like we have one of the smoothest, best performing cams on the market. Why would we take that away from somebody just because they don't want to spend the money? So we took the concept of let's just spend less time on machining. Some of the options like the dovetail for QAD or the Picatinny for a sight. Let's take those away, but still give you the best performance on the things that really shoot the arrow, and that's the cams, the risers, the cams, the limb pockets, the limbs themselves. So we kept all that the same as what you're getting in the high end, Phorms and the RVX, but just simplified the riser. But it's still a good, sexy looking riser. It feels great in the hand for $799. I don't think you're going to find a bow at sub $1,000 that's going to perform like that bow does.
Yeah, I would agree. That was definitely it's definitely the one that we steer people towards when they're coming in looking for a bow that they don't necessarily want to get off of Amazon, but they
Yeah,
don't have
exactly.
the money for a flagship bow and don't need all the accessories like you were mentioning. The Picatinny rail, the integrated dovetail, all those things are extras. And so, yeah, when people are coming in getting started or want something a little again more economical, that's definitely something that we steer them towards. As far as so we went over Ronin, RVX Plus series, and then the Phorm series. So, with G5 being integrated with Prime, let's start talking a little bit more about those. The broadhead last year that really hit the market running was the T2. It's funny to me because a lot of people are gonna, because Rage has been around for a while, Sever's been around for a while. People are like, oh, well, it's just Dudley's version of the Rage. Well, not necessarily, and that's definitely not my experience with it. One, it's American machining, and so it takes a little bit more time. You guys put a lot more detail into it, and they're very high quality. Two, again, this is anecdotal. I've only shot one animal with it, but the 70-yard quartered away mule deer doe that I shot died within 80 yards, and it was a complete pass through at over 70 yards. So, and there, I didn't even need the blood trail. I could see where she went, but I followed the blood trail just to see. And man, there's some voodoo in that broadhead that expands it more than the 2-inch cut, because I sent the pictures over to Dudley after I got to her. The entrance hole was actually bigger than the exit. I don't know how, but it was. And I just sent him the picture. I'm like, dude, this was insane. And he was like, that's what we've been seeing since I started shooting it. So what I guess talk to us a little bit more about that, because I'm traditionally a 3-blade guy, especially for or at least some kind of hybrid mechanical, just because I don't like a slit cut. I've talked about that a lot on the podcast and on videos. I prefer a better blood trail than what most 2 blades give, whether it's a fixed or a mechanical. But this one blew my mind and will be in my quiver again this year. So tell us a little bit about that. What's behind the T2?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, it was our first project with John. John has a very, I don't want to say set mindset, but he likes what he likes and he doesn't tend to steer off of that too much. But he does a lot of research to get to that point. And so it was kind of when it
I
came
say
to
he's
us.
killed more stuff in his lifetime than I've even thought
Oh
about killing
God,
in my
yes.
future
And it's,
lifetime.
we don't even get to see everything John kills. So, but yeah, it was great to work with him. He brought some ideas to the plate. He brought some things that he knew he wanted in a broadhead, and that's what we look for when we work with partners. Is we kind of, if we're going to do a partnership with a broadhead, we want to, or with a person and a broadhead, we don't want to just build them a broadhead. We want them to come to the table with, this is what I like, this is what I've been seeing. But we're also going to go with the same, the ideas that we feel are, critical in building a broadhead, blade design, blade angles, materials, things like that. So yeah, John came to us. He's been a big Rage fan for a long time. So he was always a big 2-blade guy. His biggest thing is trauma going into the animal. So, and it's one of our things too. We're not a fan of broadheads that open up inside the animal. We want it to open up on the surface of the animal. There's two major reasons for it. One is just having a big hole. Two is having a hole if there's not an exit hole. Everybody like, oh, I had a great exit hole. Well, that's great. But if you hit the offside shoulder, do something weird, the animal turns and it goes long ways through the body. I killed my first elk this year, and it was a almost frontal shot, and I basically stuck her in the front shoulder, and it went all the way into her back hip. So I didn't get an exit hole, but I had the same experience as you did. My entrance hole was almost 4 to 5 inches, in vertical slit. You're not closing that. It's not laying down on that. So our biggest thing is a slide back blade system, so it doesn't have to flip. So that helps with two things. One, it opens the blades on the surface of the thing. And then also on a severe angled shot, you're not having a major turn. So if you do on an angled shot on a flip back blade system, it will actually catch the first blade and turn the broadhead until they're both lined up so they both open up. Well, you lose a lot of kinetic energy with that. So the concept is being able to produce a hole going in. And this one is actually, it was a surprise to us because you said it. You're a 3-blade guy. We're 3-blade kings. We've been the 3-blade category since we started. We've had some 2 blades through the years, but they've just never been where we've had them to the standards of what we considered, G5 and prime, qualities. So to come out with a 2-blade and not, be able to talk John into like, no, we want this to be a 3-blade for him, is to be able to take the things that have been in the industry and what has worked well and basically simplify them and make them stronger and better, So we went through, John probably had, God, I want to say 25, 30 different renditions of the head through the year. And we were finding ones that weren't opening, they were stalling on openings, so they didn't have as big entrance holes. So we would make small tweaks and changes. It wasn't just, here's a broadhead, this is your head, let's move on. It was small things, even going into the crossbow version that's coming, it's out, but we're shipping here in the next few months. Was we had to make small changes to ensure that entrance hole was opening up. But basically what you're doing is on a 2-blade system or an entrance, opening system, is it's going to start to push the hide in. So basically you're going from a flat surface to a surface like this. So basically this distance to this distance may be 2 inches, but as soon as it opens up, you're closer to 3 or 4 inches on an entrance hole. So some brands called it hyperextension through the years. I don't know if there's an exact term for it, but basically, yeah, you're pushing in, so it's cutting as it goes in. So you're not, you're not versus other broadheads where they're actually in the system before they cut. So basically, you're cutting on that surface. So
yeah, I just call it the T2 voodoo. That's
yeah, exactly. I'd be right there with you. I mean, I was the same way when I found my elk. I mean, she only ran 40 yards, but man, the entrance blood was incredible. No stopping, no nothing. We did run to a spot where we ran out of blood, and I'm like, something's wrong here. We turned around, she was right behind us, so we walked right by her. But yeah, I mean, the entrance holes, the exit holes have been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, we did a hunt in Texas with John. It was kind of the ones where we were on his podcast. It was kind of a race to like how many pigs and how many hogs can we kill. And then it was turned into like how many can we kill with the same broadhead. And that was a major thing for us too, is having a broadhead that's almost indestructible. I mean, we got to 3, 4, 5 animals with one head, clean them off, make sure the blades were nice and sharp, snap them back in. We weren't changing the clips. We weren't changing anything and going back out. So we wanted a head that was American made, that was strong, just all those benefits of being able to control it in our own facilities.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's awesome. And yeah, I again, for people, if you've been a 3-blade guy, I would recommend trying it. I personally haven't tried it on an elk. I have I've got a glue-in system that I trust for my elk system. It's a little bit heavier than my regular arrow, but on the deer, it just did phenomenal. Flies really great as well. And then, from the T2, that was kind of the one that I was excited about. Oh, It doesn't rattle as well. So it locks in.
I mean, I got one right here.
No rattle,
there's no rattle,
collar.
there's no nothing. It's all stainless steel components. The clip is internal. There's no, no O-ring, no nothing like that. We made it. And that being said, we've already got the calls, like everybody that loves I'm sure the next broadhead we're going to talk about, Mega Meat or Dead Meat, wants this clip. And we are looking in that for the possible future, but it's hard to say because we do really love the system we have on those broadheads too. So
yeah,
there's no rattle, there's no clicking, there's no nothing. It's super easy to drop in, super easy to recontain. I mean, it's simplicity is king when it comes to broadheads, especially when you get to the mechanical world. So it's got to open, it's got to be simple, it can't rattle. And if we can make it as much stainless steel or as much American made, parts in the house. So that's what we're going to do. I mean, we don't source unless we really, really have to. I mean, we employ almost 100 people here. I mean, just for this reason, to make American made products.
Yeah. No, for sure. And and that's the other thing too for me with broadheads is I prefer the ferrule be 100% steel or titanium. Again, that's the part that's going to be taking the brunt of everything. Again, same thing with the components on the front end of my arrow. I prefer them to be steel or titanium for that very reason as well. I want it to be stiff. I want it to be something I can trust. And so that T2 definitely hit all those marks. And I again would like, and we're going to get into the Mega Meat, my experience there. I like the huge cut of the T2 with the smaller profile of a 2-blade system. And also the fact that the blades they come back over the shaft of the arrow, so they're not like adding more length to the ferrule out front, which again adds to the stability of arrow in flight. So all of those things, you checked all the boxes there. It's almost like Dudley, and you guys know what you're talking about. But it works really, really well. So highly recommend it for people that want to check those out. And then I can't really show, I would flash up pictures here, but I can't really show. If you're out there listening and you want to see the pictures of what the T2 did on my mule deer, I can send them to you, on Instagram or whatever. I'm not going to put them up on YouTube. They're pretty
They're
gross.
a little gruesome. That's my phone all fall. My wife will be looking like,
Yeah.
"Are you looking at girls on your phone?" No, it's another bloody picture of something, So, they definitely had probably the best off the start shelf we've had on any broadhead when it came to entrance and exit holes. I mean, it was almost like the point where I was nervous about opening my phone at certain locations because what kind of messy, dirty photo, kind of bloody photos were going to be on that, So, the other way you're hiding
Exactly.
So, but it's
Yeah. That's what you're hiding over there.
yeah, exactly. I'm not looking at girls, I swear, but yeah, no, it's I mean, this is our 25th year with broadheads. I mean, this is 25 years for G5, and we've taken years and years and years of development and time. We have a testing machine called the Guillotine. It's on some of Dudley's videos and things like that, where we force them through multiple materials. It has to hold up. It can't break. We were nervous putting this little screw in the middle of a broadhead. Let me find it right there. That little guy right there made Nate incredibly nervous because that's one of the points in the broadhead you want it to be extremely tough. And we were able to kind of small tweaks here and there to make sure that wasn't a bend point, a break point. It could be just killing a whitetail. It could be going anywhere in the world on an adventure. We want to make sure when it's time that a person has every bit of control or being able to make sure that their hunt of the lifetime is not determined by a broadhead. So we think outside the box when it comes to that stuff. So.
Exactly. Let's see. So let's move into my whitetail experience with the Mega Meat. So, man, I will say before I get onto that, I think no, it wasn't that one. Never mind. I was gonna say it was a T2 I sent into a tree, but it wasn't. But the G5. So the Mega Meat, guys. So there's the dead meat and the Mega Meat. The dead meat's the 1.5-inch cut. It's a little bit smaller head. Get a little bit more penetration due to that. I went with the Mega Meat because I wanted the bigger hole, whether it was just an entrance hole or entrance and exit. The Mega Meat's a 3-blade head. Again, I feel like it's not that long of a ferrule, so it doesn't extend out to the front of the arrow very much at all. And I actually epoxied. So they come with practice broadheads.
They do. Yep.
I personally like to shoot the broadhead. If it's more than a 2-blade that looks like, again, like the T2, I like to shoot it into the target. And even, I would like to shoot the T2 into a target. But that one's a little bit easier to mimic versus a 3-blade. The 3-blade, there's more surface area on the front, whether it's mechanical or not. And so if it's a mechanical head, you guys send out the BMP.
Yep. So we have
that's the tester.
Yep, ballistically matched points. So we work really hard, almost as much on the BMP as we do the broadhead. That's why the BMP for the T2 hasn't come out yet, as we're still developing it. We designed them so somebody can shoot, you know, any setup from a bow that's not tuned to tune to, you know, anything. You should be able to take a BMP and shoot them directly and correlated with the particular brights of strikers, our entire lineup. So, yes, I mean, do I say not to shoot a broadhead? No, I mean, just double checking that mindset of just knowing everything. Like I said earlier, we don't want this stuff to be in your head. But yeah, I mean, you know, I get what you mean, and I think you're gonna tell me you're gonna glue one shut and shoot it. I think is where we're getting to.
Yes, yeah. So I'm sure Mark told you about this. Mark at Wild Arrow and I,
Yeah,
we epoxied one shut, so it's pretty much concrete shut. Which, you know, I don't ever recommend shooting broadheads into bag targets, guys. Don't do that.
no,
But shooting the broadhead into foam targets, when you pull them out, if you've got a good foam target that doesn't go all the way through, it's definitely going to chew up your foam, but at the same time, a mechanical, you can end up damaging the blades or something like that if they've expanded and then you're trying to pull them out backwards. It's like barbs on a fishing hook. So they're not meant to go out backwards; they're only meant to go forwards. But with epoxying it in and shooting it out, 100 yards, 80 to 100 yards, that's one way around it. If you want to be like me and be super nerdy and technical, I don't doubt that you guys put a lot of work into the BMP. That one comes with the broadhead, so you can trust that, guys. But again, if you're like me and Mark and super nerdy about shooting out to 100 yards with broadheads to make sure it's super dialed in, I can attest to you can epoxy it shut and it will work. So
and you get for a guy that wants to do it that doesn't want to waste a broadhead. Most targets you're going to shoot at least the broadhead through. You know, it should be sticking out the back, or if you can force it that last couple inches out
Mhm.
the back of your target, if you can. I'm not saying it always happens. Unscrew the broadhead off the back, pull your arrow off, screw it back on is a good option too. So, but yeah, the T2 will flip forward, so you can pull it out. The Mega Meat, how the blade's designed and everything, it gets to about 90 degrees and stops right there, and you will have
Mhm.
basically a grappling hook. So either push it through or glue one shut, or like I said, shoot the BMP too. So
Yeah. So after we went out and got those tested, I took those out to do some whitetail shooting, and the first one that I shot was in October in Wisconsin. It was my first whitetail buck. Nothing big. He's actually sitting right there uh,
awesome,
the safe
congrats.
back there. Little small guy, but he got me excited, and it was funny because I was expecting him to duck, so I shot, kind of more in the heart. I was aiming lower third, so if he did duck really bad, I could even hit him high lung. He didn't duck at all. He just like took it like a champ. Like I did the whatever sound I made, and he like stopped, looked back, and just punched right through him, and he toppled over in I think it was like 40 or 50 yards. Um, and it was the loudest pop I think I've ever heard of any broadhead going through an animal that I've shot. I mean, it sounded like a very large balloon popping. And so, when I describe it to people when I walked up, because again, I saw him fall down, so I knew where he was. But I like to see blood trails, and whether I see the animal or not, which is ideal, is watching him fall over. But I want to know, can I trust this to give me a good blood trail in the future if I'm in thicker stuff or whatever? So I go to where I shot him. I never ended up finding the arrow. It blew straight through him. I think the shot was 30, 40 yards, something like that. Um, Blew straight through him, never found it in all the leaves. And then once I got there, man, it seriously was like someone had taken a bucket of blood and was like splashing it on either side of him where he was running. It was insane. And so I always tell people, that the dead meat, if you want a smaller head, but the mega meat, man, that thing is brutal.
Yeah,
And I've only
no,
heard the same story for people that have used the dead meat or the mega meat on other animals as well.
yeah, no. We started with the dead meat. You know, an inch and a half. We came out with the Mega Meat shortly after. We actually kind of altered the dead meat and the Mega Meat to basically be the same head, just two different blade systems now. But yeah, I mean, it's such a gory instant. I mean, the minute you hit it, I shot a couple great whitetails this year. And just same exact reaction. I mean, just loud pops. You know, I mean, as soon as you hear it hit that lung, you know, low lung or the heart, I mean, it just wants to open up, and it just produces such an extreme entrance hole and exit hole.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, like it's our fastest growing broadhead we've ever had. I mean, Montec is king. It's always probably still going to stay king in the fixed blade market. But the Mega Meat has definitely came right next to try to take that crown. It's it's just wicked. It's such a big entrance and exit hole. Or if, like you said, if you hit offside shoulder, things like that, and you can't make it through, you know, it's going to produce a giant hole. I mean, there's a lot of broadheads out there on the market now that are trying to avoid bone or trying to, pivot or do that. And those are all great designs. With the right setup, the right system, more than likely you're still going to be able to punch through that system with a bigger hole, break those bones. I mean, it's getting that giant entrance hole in case you do hit a shoulder or hit something like that where you don't get, you know, the complete pass through. I'll say it again over and over and over again. Having a bigger entrance hole is going to produce a dead animal 9 times out of 10 compared to what, and you know, a small entrance, or it may be dead and you just can't find it because you don't have any blood.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, blood trails on the Mega Meats and the dead meat. Again, the same kind of text. We had a group text between all of our sales reps back when I was in sales with the market, or with when we launched the Mega Meat. Like the first month was the most insane, gruesome text thread. I mean, it was 20 guys, and it was just all the dealers. Everybody's like, "Dude, what have you guys come up with?" I mean, it's just and it's taken a lot of years to get to that point, working with, you know, T-Bone and those kind of guys to make sure we stayed at those same blade angles that they've always enjoyed. But still produce a 2-inch cut with a 3 blade is not easy, and especially with an all steel setup. So it's hard, because that was me back and forth too. Like, we came out with a T2. I really wanted to give it a shot. I really, really did, just because like it's new. Like, we got to play with this stuff, you know. But I was such a Mega Meat guy, so shot an elk. I switched back over to Mega Meats for my whitetails. They're both such a consistent killing product. So it's hard to say, you know, to tell somebody one versus the other. They're both going to do what you need them to do. So
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, there's a lot, again, that goes into it. I personally like mechanicals myself, or even a hybrid style
yep,
blade.
yep.
And I've killed both my elk with the hybrid style, and all the deer that I've killed. I don't think I've had one that I killed with I take that back. I did have a fixed head one year, but I didn't find the deer until like 2 weeks later. Obviously the meat was dead, you know, was gone, everything, but there was no blood trail whatsoever. And it was so nasty thick, you know, I thought I'd missed him. And my buddy was hiking up there later. He was like, "Hey, this guy, it looks like an awful shot," which it was, you know, again, it went in just above his spine, because I was so steep down on these mountains we have here. Went in just above his spine, front left shoulder, went out his hind quarter. That's how steep of an angle it was. And all he saw was the hind quarter shot. He was like, "Man, someone had a really crappy shot. Send me the picture." He was like, "Do you know anyone else that was hunting up here?" I was like, "That looks like an exit hole of my deer." So I went up there, and it was mine. So, but that, you know, that was kind of for me. I'm not so concerned with penetration, because I shoot anywhere between a 70 to 80 pound bow. You know, 28-inch draw. I'm getting plenty of energy and speed to get the penetration that I need. And so I've moved away from fixed. I always keep one in the quiver just in case there's a lot of brush or something like that I've got to shoot through. But outside of that, I stick with mechanicals personally. And on top of that, once you get the entrance hole, I mean, I don't know about you, but if I had, you know, something sticking out here and I'm trying to like break it with my arm or whatever to get that arrow out of me, inside, what's happening with those sharp blades is devastating. You may
Yeah,
not get an exit hole,
like a
but it's
blender in
just,
there.
yeah, it's just chopping up all the goodies in there. And whether it's puncturing lungs or hitting arteries or veins, and it's not a pretty sight, pretty much. You know, if you want to dive into it, you can think about that. But, you know, we get upset about getting a little poke from a cactus. You know,
Exactly.
imagine having a 2-inch sharp broadhead rolling around in your rib cage. Like, that's just not, that's
Yeah,
not
no,
good. And so,
you hit
yeah.
it right on the head there. I mean, if you, because do have, you know, they blades don't flip back, at least on the Monta or the Mega Meat and the Dead Meat. I mean, it's going to stay in the cavity 9 times out of 10 if it doesn't pass through. And it's just going to continue to chop. The blades are exposed all the time. It's the outside blade exposed. So, I mean, basically, even if, say, this broadhead never opened up, I'll be honest, I've never had a call where somebody said it didn't open up. But it's a 7/8 inch broadhead. It's a lot like the traditional broadheads of the old days. It's the same size, but now you have an option to be able to open that bad boy up to 2 inches cut during flights or during the penetration. So, yeah, no, it's been a staple for us. I mean, year after year after year, the more and more people are trying it, and I think we do a good job with marketing. I'm not going to say we can outspend some of the big guys, but which I would say we're probably sitting there with as the big guy now. But it's been buddies telling buddies. It's stories like this that just tell somebody to go out there and shoot one and try, give it a chance, because it really is almost a shock factor the first time you shoot a deer or whitetail. And even there, that being said, like, we are having more and more growth in the West that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if you found 1 out of 10 guys that shot a mechanical, it was pretty surprising. Guys were going to, Striker, broadheads like the Striker, the Montec, Slick Tricks, brands like that were just really sharp, short, steel heads. And it's been shifted. I think more and more guys are giving the opportunities to kill elk, kill mule deer. We've even had some guys kill moose. I mean, even that size animal with a mechanical now. It's the industry has definitely shifted, just the amount of people that have tried it and been able to have success with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. And there's 2 stories of people you guys might know. I'd say go check out the videos. They're both on Brian Call's YouTube. But his elk this last year, which was a limited entry draw, which he's been putting in for over a decade, he trusted the dead meats, and they took a marginal shot because, and obviously he goes more into detail as to why the shot ended up a little high, the way it was, in the situation, but he took that shot and it turned into a dead bull for him. Also Jeremiah on his, his sheep hunt, which, and it's, I kind of felt bad because I heard some people, talking shit, frankly, on his shot placement, but I'm like, look, guys, until you've been in that situation, like, I think all of us have hit in a marginal position on an animal and not
Absolutely.
been
I
happy
mean,
about it.
if you haven't hunted enough. I mean, I've had that story a million times. I mean, one of the guys that we worked with, he ran into the same experience. Like last year, 2 years ago, because we were both in Iowa at the same time. He moved to Iowa and um, made a marginal shot. Thought it was a good shot. Made a little bit of a marginal shot. We all make it, but that was the reason I brought it up, because he said, I've never lost an animal. I'm like, I think you jinx yourself, but at the same time, it does happen. A lot of guys haven't taken a ton of shots, and I'm not saying launching something at 80 yards in a windy situation. I'm talking even at 20, 30 yards. Animals can make reactions. They change. They do. This is something moving. This is something dynamic. So for somebody to kind of bash somebody for saying, like Jeremiah shot, like hitting it in the throat, was that where he was aiming? Absolutely not. Did it take a step? Was it windy? I mean, it's a hunt of a lifetime. In his mind, he will never have that tag again. And for you to be able to keep yourself calm and collective, I mean, same thing with Brian. It's that tag is something, as an Oregon boy moving to Utah, he'll probably never draw that tag again, or even draw a limited entry elk tag. I'm still waiting on a limited entry Utah tag,
Yeah.
So for some people, that's the one thing about this industry, and I'm not going to get on a rant. Give some guys some breaks. We all do stupid stuff. We all make some shots that probably, but yeah, in that situation, Jeremiah made not the most perfect shot. I mean, it looked like somebody slit his throat with a knife. I mean, absolutely insane, So things happen, and that's why we try to make a broadhead. Anybody can make a broadhead for a perfect shot. We try to make a broadhead in case something like that happens. We're not going to promote it. We're not going to tell you to shoot him in the ass, go for a jugular. We're not telling you to do that stuff. But in the situation where it happens like that, I hope the best that we made a broadhead that helps you out in that situation.
Yep. I'm right there with you. And that's a big thing. Again, there's a lot more factors. We're talking more to the guys, that are 60 pounds plus, okay with penetration, not dealing with, those kind of issues. And obviously mechanicals, I would say tune your bow. Make sure your
Yep.
bow's tuned. I need to
Number
make
one.
that point. Like, don't throw a mechanical on the day before season and be like, oh, it's gonna, it'll fly like field point. I'm telling you, it doesn't, because it's still more mass up for, well, not mass per se, but more surface area that's flying through the air, whether it's a mechanical, whether it's a fixed head. It's more than your field point. It's not going
Yeah,
to fly like your
it's
field
surface
point.
area.
Exactly.
It's front of center. I mean, the big talk over the last 10 years, or now more like the last 5 years, is front of center. And it changes if field point is a half an inch and you make a broadhead 1 inch, that changes your FOC slightly on your shaft. And that could make a process different in how your arrow is flexing and flying. Shoot your broadhead, shoot a BMP, shoot something, just give the animal a chance. You did the right steps to make sure the animal is ethically killed. So you said it 100% there.
Exactly.
Give yourself some time. Don't, I ran a shop for a long time before I came to this side of it. And the amount of people that would show up in a shop 2 or 3 days before a season to get strings changed or what broadhead should I shoot blew my mind. I've kept my mouth shut so many times saying you shouldn't be in the woods. But if that's the time he has, I understand to a certain point. But it's being respectful to the animals that are out there by spending just a couple days shooting a broadhead, or just double checking. If it's one shot and it's the same spot as your field point, good for you. A lot of times it's not. Even with perfectly tuned bows, there might be an inch, half an inch different, up, down, left, right. Just clicking your sight a couple times can make the difference, and especially for a
The
guy
wind blowing in your face? Is it blowing left to
yeah,
right? Is
yeah.
it blowing right to left? Is it sunny? Is the barometric pressure? Like, there's so much stuff that goes into it that you don't even think about.
Yeah, guys that are from the east that travel west, season's a month early. Now you got to move your prep time a month early. You're going up in elevation. Things change. Just give yourself a chance to make the most ethical shots, and hopefully
Exactly.
as a product manufacturer, we can help you with those situations. In case something isn't perfect, it's not necessarily 9 times out of 10, it's probably fine. It's that one time that can make the difference, so.
Exactly. And I even had, so those are those two stories I'd recommend people go and watch
Absolutely.
on Brian Call's YouTube. Both of those videos are up there. They tell he does an amazing job storytelling. Like, it's insane.
One of the best.
And then, for me personally, I can't remember which head it was that I was using, but the deer, we had some does that we were trying to cull on my buddy's property, some whitetails. And so I'm just up there. It was over corn. But even with it being over corn, watching this deer duck my arrow at 30 yards. And guys, I'm telling you, I can group with the best of them, maybe not the best of them, with I'd say the middle group of them
You
at
put your
30
mind.
yards. I can shoot well at 30 yards. 30 yards. I don't even start at 30 yards usually once I have a sight tape. I usually start warming up at 50, 60 plus. Like, that's just, I'm confident there.
You want those 20, 30-yard shots to be easier. I'm never going to say the word easy. Easier. So shooting 50, 60, 70 is going to make that. Look at Tech.
Yeah. So
people that
I was super confident in this shot on my first white-tailed doe that walked in, and it was a smaller doe, but still, like, I put it in the middle of the body, and that doe ducked the arrow so hard I didn't even get any hair. And my buddy, like, my buddy just looked down at me because he was above me videoing me. He was like, "What happened?" I was like, I don't know. Like, I know the pin was buried right where it's supposed to be. And we went back and watched the video, and sure enough, it was just, the only thing I can describe it as with whitetail that are jittery is doing a burpee. They literally chest to the ground, boom, and their legs are in this spring-loaded position. So as soon as they even just touch the ground, they activate and they're gone. And it was insane. And then the other one that I finally did, I started aiming lower third because I realized these weren't Wisconsin deer, they were North Carolina deer, so they don't just take it. They're skittish. And so I started aiming lower third, and again, this was about a 30-yard shot. And my arrow's zipping at about 300 feet per second. It's a fast arrow. It goes through, and when I killed this doe, pulled it out, went to clean it, and I'm like, I'm cleaning it. I'm like, dude, why is the entry hole lower than the exit hole? And he was like, well, what do you mean? And I showed him, and we went back again and watched the video. this doe ducked so hard that between the time it entered one side, and this was not a big doe, guys, this was a smaller doe, essentially didn't have spots anymore, how small it was. Like that's like, so my buddy texted me, I was like, hey, I got one. He was like, well, how big is it? I said, it doesn't have spots. So like, but I mean, this was a small doe, right? And it went in one side of the rib cage, and by the time it exited the other side of the rib cage, it had ducked and turned to the point where it exited high on the exit side of the rib cage, but it entered perfect, like mid-level body, and exited high on. And I was just blown away. I'm like, these things are insane, how crazy they are. So all of that to be said, that's why I go with mechanicals personally. I'm not worried about penetration. I know it's going to be there as long as I make a good shot. I stay away from, the humerus, the ball joint. Like, I'm okay aiming just a little bit behind that. Because I know I'm going to get I'm going to get good penetration that way. And I'm not trying to crack any bones. I want good blood trails. So the mechanicals for me, it's not about hiding bad arrow flight. It's more about better blood trails. And if I don't get an exit, which I haven't had happen yet, if I don't, it's tearing up the inside of the animal because it's expanded. It's sharp blades that are essentially razor blades cutting things up in there. That's why I personally choose mechanicals, not to hide bad arrow flight. I still shoot them out 100 plus, make sure everything's tuned and dialed. Please don't be that person that throws on a mechanical, say, well, they fly like field points, and you don't know what happened when you go out in the field and you punch them in the shoulder because it's not flying like your field point. Don't do that. Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy.
Use
right?
the mechanical because you want a better blood trail.
Yeah, no, and use them to your benefit. Don't use them just to hide that you didn't have time to shoot your bow or you didn't have time to get your bow tuned. I mean, I understand life, it gets busier and busier and busier. I got 2 little kids at home and a wonderful wife, and I feel like I'm never going to catch up. But take a couple seconds. It doesn't hurt you to take a couple shots before you go to work, after you get home, just a couple shots here and there. 1, keep yourself in that mindset. 2, just to make sure. So I agree with what you're saying. And fixed blades are awesome. I mean, Montecs have been king in that category for that long for a reason. Great entrance, great exits. You're not getting as big of a system. Same thing with our striker. I mean, they do the job. If you like a fixed blade, I'm never going to steer somebody away from a fixed blade either. So especially for like you said earlier, somebody that's sub 60 pounds, somebody that's a youth shooter, somebody new, strikers, Montecs do a great job that way too. So I mean, guys, go play. I mean, that's the cool thing is there's a lot of stuff to play with in this industry.
And be confident too. That's the bigger thing too is, if you're starting, if you're like, I don't like mechanicals because I'm worried about it not opening. One, I might call you a boomer because mechanicals nowadays have really good technology. I'm not concerned about that necessarily, but I really would say, like, great, then stay away from mechanicals because you don't want to be at full draw on an animal, whether it's a cow, the bull of a lifetime, the sheep of a lifetime, or you're just culling does or hogs. You don't want to be at full draw wondering, is your arrow going to work?
Yeah,
That's not what you want. You need to be confident. So if mechanicals make you confident, cool. If they don't, then just steer away from them and go. There's plenty of great fixed heads out there. You mentioned a couple.
That's exactly it.
Exactly.
Everybody makes a pretty quality product out there nowadays. I don't say everybody. There's lots of options for quality products out there nowadays. If you found one that's your niche, stay with it. If you're questioning it and you want to try something new, Dead Meat, Mega Meat, T2, give them a shot, guys. You said it. You hit a lot of points that people are nervous to talk about just because we get the call all the time. I mean, we sell a lot of broadheads, so we get a lot of stories and a lot of things. We don't know. A lot of guys, oh, it was a perfect shot and I lost the animal. Well, was it perfect? Like you said, did it roll? Did it not? I mean, I kind of have a North Carolina story, absolutely opposite of you. I was hunting a spot and got in my brain. My buddy's like, "Oh, dude, our deer are skittish. We have a dog season. Like they're gonna duck. They're gonna duck." I'm like, "Bull! I've been shooting whitetails for 20 years. You're not gonna talk me into it." And okay, a all white albino doe walked in. I knew she was there. Nobody there wanted to kill her. Voodoo, Magic, North Carolina, they're like, no, we're not killing. I'm like, put me there. I'll kill her. We came there to kill velvet bucks. I was like, yes, I'm in. She came in at 30. Um, and I had my 20-yard pin. I'm like, this is easy. He's in my head. Mess with my confidence. I'm like, okay, this is perfect. I'm only 2 or 3 inches between 20 and 30. I'm going to put my 20-yard pin on her. It should fall low. She didn't duck. She didn't move. She didn't do any of those things we talked about. And I shot right between her legs and never had an opportunity to kill her again. Some do, some don't, so, you know, confidence is key. Do what you're good at, do what you know is in your head. Don't listen to other people. Just, so yeah, they can go either way. They can roll, they can duck, they can move. Grant Woods is one that's done a lot of research on this for anybody that wants to look at this. He has a lot of informational videos on animals' positions, head down versus head up, on how they move and react. Just if you want a little more research, it's out there. If not, put them behind the shoulder and, bottom third, and you more than likely you're going to have, it's going to have no problem. So
Yeah, you hit something good. No, that's awesome. Well, we didn't quite have enough time to get down into, Montana Rifle Co. If you guys want to know more about that, definitely go check it out. If you're in the market for building rifles or looking at a new rifle this year, that's also under the G5 family. But yeah, we definitely nerded out about bows and broadheads, especially. So again, guys, if you are in the market this year, one, for a new bow, definitely go shoot a prime if it's at your local dealer. And if you are in the market for new broadheads, always feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to share my experience. I ran quite a few different ones last year. And like I said, the G5 Mega Meat's going to be, anytime I do whitetail, that's going to be in my quiver. The T2 for me is going to be in my quiver for mule deer for sure, and whitetail. And I would highly recommend it. But again, reach out to me if you have any questions about it. And Brian, I really appreciate your time going over these things. Is there anything else we didn't touch on that you want to talk about?
not a ton. No, I mean, we kind of went down the rabbit hole, didn't we? So no, like
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I think we hit it perfectly. If you want to try something new, if you haven't shot any of our heads, give them a try. That's one thing about a price. I'm going to say price point product, but a product that doesn't break the bank. You can play with broadheads year to year to year. Give us a try. And the same thing goes for the bows. If you're in the market for shooting a new bow, or at least trying one, give the new Phorm a try, give the RVX a try. Don't pass it up just because you're a Matthews or a Hoyt or a PSC guy. Give us a chance. I mean, I think you'd be really surprised what thinking outside the box can do for a hunter. So I appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate the invite. So no, I think we kind of hit it all.
Awesome. Well, guys, if you're local to Utah, I would highly recommend you go into Wild Arrow. They carry all of the products made by G5, the broadheads, the bows. Definitely go check them out. If you're not local, go into your local shop, check them out. Again, I'll leave links down below where you can kind of review everything, see what they have to offer. But I would highly recommend, guys, anything archery related, go into your local pro shop, just because without those pro shops, we're going to have people flinging arrows all over the place and blowing bows up left and right. So we want the sport to continue to grow, which we actually just recently had a big win with the Olympic Committee.
We did.
Adding another, I didn't see all the details. I just know they added something else to the Olympics with archery. So we had another big win. We want to continue growing the sport. Stop being mean to each other. Just tease your buddies, that's fine, but when it comes to genuinely tearing people apart for things, like, come on, guys, we want to grow the sport. So
Exactly. Support each other.
with that, exactly, yeah, with that being said, thanks so much again, Brian. And like I always say, guys, get out, live your life, and love it.